Going on YouTube? Northeast Ohio here. Back for part 3. Doing our little off-season NBA targets series thing we got going on here. Doing about 5 guys a video, trying to make our way through all the teams that did not make the playoffs. And today we will finish that. So we're going to go over the last couple teams today. And as you know, we've skipped a couple because I didn't think there was anyone worthwhile on them. But we're going to go over the last couple today. And then we will move on to the next couple parts. We will start looking at the teams that made the playoffs and have already been eliminated. But this will finish up the last of the teams. Some of these teams did go to the bubble. We are going to talk about the Kings, the Pelicans, the Spurs, and the Suns. So we're going to save the Grizzlies for the playoff teams because I got 5 players off those 4 teams. So we called it a day there. So before we get into things, I just wanted to touch on something really quick, and that is thanks for the subs, guys. The channel has gone nuts the last 5 days or so. I've had more traffic the last 5 days than I've had. The last 5 days have been the best 5 days of the channel by far in regards to traffic and gaining new subscribers. And we are getting so close to 1,000. So close to 1,000. We're about 2 dozen away from 1,000, depending on when this video goes up. So if you like what we're doing, hit that sub button. Let's hit that big milestone of 1,000. I never wasn't even sure if I would ever get to 1,000, let alone get to 1,000 this quickly. So keep doing what you guys are doing down below. Like buttons, comments, subs, all the shenanigans. So let's get into some good stuff. All right. So we got our 5 players. Let's talk about number 1 first up, and we're going to go with the Kings. And I have 2 from the Kings. Kings get a twofer. First up is Marvin Bagley. Now, Marvin Bagley comes with a huge caveat. And for those of you that missed parts 1 and part 2, I'll link to them. But essentially, the gist of this is to buy the cards raw now and either hold them, or specifically the crux of this whole series is to buy them now and send them in to get graded and get them back prior to next season starting or right around when next season starts. So you're maximizing value 2 different ways. In one, you're sending the card in to get graded. So assuming it gets a PSA 10, then when you get it back, you have the increased value from that. And also, the cards are going to be sitting at PSA waiting to get graded over the next 3 months. That'll be during the lead up to next season, and hopefully the market turns itself around and prices will naturally go up as well. So you kind of get a double whammy. This is the perfect time to be sending your stuff off to get graded, but you can't hesitate. You need to get it in now. So now look at that out of the way. So Bagley's our first one. And like I said, he comes with a huge caveat. And the caveat here is that I would try to sell him before the season started. I think he has tremendous upside and he could go crazy this season. Don't get me wrong. But this guy cannot stay healthy. But I know the hype's going to build for him being, a top 3 pick. People love this dude. They've gotten burned by him. They don't care. They just keep going back. But his stuff is very reasonably priced. His raw prism have come all the way down to under $10. And this charts that we're looking at off Market Movers here date back. It's 60 days worth of data. I just kind of pulled that because it goes back to when I'm sorry, this one's 90 days. I meant to do these 60 days. 60 days goes back to when the market was kind of towards its peak. So we could see here at the beginning of this graph, this was a $25 card raw. This was prior to him getting re-injured, and now it's all the way down to about $5. So for $5, you could pick these up raw. It easily has an upside of 25 if he gets back to healthy. If camp reports start coming out, Bagley's healthy, foot looks good, all that crap. And then, his prices are going to rise, especially given the entry points. And then you can see here his PSA 10 prisms go for almost 100, and at one point in time went for 125. So, get these raw now for about $5 a pop if you can, and then send them in and get graded, get back, and then sell them in that upswing. That's the whole point of what we want to be doing here with these guys is buy them raw now and get them sent in for the upswing in the lead up to next season. So let's get into our next one, and it's a second king. This one's fairly obvious, but the reason why I mention him is because his prices have recently dropped fairly significantly, along with everybody else, but his seems way too cheap. And that's the Aaron Fox. We're talking about his 17 base prism. Once again, I'm using base prism for this because it's the simplest, it's the easiest, and it's the cleanest, and it's the most common. You can go ahead and feel free to spin this out to their optic cards if you want to, their select cards if you want to. Pick whatever one you want. The ratios and the gaps should be about the same. The entry level points and the exit points will be different because select and optic are valued differently. But I'm just sticking with base prism as examples here because it's the simplest. So let's look at Fox here. His raw singles are now down to about $30 a piece. And the PSA 10s go for almost 180. So that's a nice little split right there between a PSA 10 and a raw. If you buy good raw copies plus $20 to grade them, you're looking at about $50 a pop. And then you could get potentially up to 180 out of it. Now, once again, like we've discussed, the theory behind all this is that prices are going to creep up in the lead up to next season. You could see here the peak of his prices for PSA 10 was $350, and the peak of his raw was $66. If he comes out and has a good start to the season, his stuff's going to shoot like crazy. Fox is always very trendy and always very popular. So there's a good chance you could buy these for 30 now, pay 20 to get them graded through a PSA economy sub, get them back. And by the time you get them back and lead up to the season, maybe they're 200, 250. Maybe you get him back right at the beginning of the season and he started playing well and they're up over 300 again. But there's just a lot of room to grow here. This may be out of the entire series. This is one of the ones that I am intrigued with the most. Just given his star level, he's very well known. Some of the guys in this video these videos have been more, I don't want to say like edge case, but more niche guys, whereas Fox isn't. I mean, he's a borderline star / superstar if the Kings could ever get their act together. So Fox is by far one of my favorite offseason targets, given where his prices have gone recently. And I did check. There's buy it nows on eBay for like 35, 37 bucks at the time that I recorded this video. So let's move away from the Kings because they're sad. The Kings make everybody sad because they are bad. All right, next up, we have the Pelicans. Now, the obvious choice would have been Zion, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, whatever. Going a little off the radar for this one. This guy got a little trendy at the beginning of the bubble, and I've liked this guy dating back to when they drafted him. And that's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, he is not going to sniff a starting lineup most likely this year with the Pelicans. This could be one of two things. You can either look at this this to me is more of a long-term hold than a flip before the season starts. Unless I think there's a chance that he could be trade bait in the offseason to upgrade that roster. I don't know what the Pelicans are going to do yet. The NBA offseason is a pipe dream at this point because no one knows when it starts, where it is, how it's going to work, all that stuff. They're also going to be looking for a new coach. So who knows where this ends up. But his point of entry is dirt cheap. You can pick up his raw prisms for $2. And this one isn't going to be someone that I'm going to tell you to run out and grade. This is more pick up a lot of them, stash them in a box, and hold on to them. But for his entry level point, I just think this is a no-brainer. You could see here, $2 there, a lot of 3 for $5. Scrolling through here, here's a silver. If you guys want to get Spicy Town, head to Spicy Town with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Silver for $17.50. 175. Here's 4 of them that went for 18. That actually seems a little high compared to some of these prices. Another 3 that went for $6. The entry point is just super cheap, and I think he has good trendy upside. He's another one of these guys, and I talk about this a lot, that there's a niche of the hobby that really like Nikhil Alexander Walker. And we saw it in the early bubble games, or in the scrimmages rather. He had a couple big games in the scrimmages. Uh, and his prices went crazy for about a week or so. And every time he gets consistent playing time, he is not afraid to shoot. He puts up big scoring numbers. Now, do I think that's a good NBA player? Not necessarily. But the market likes guys that score. So to get into him for next to nothing, I mean, $2 a card for a base prism rookie, that's insane. Buy 10 of them, stick them in a box. Buy 20 of them, stick them in a box, forget about them. And then hope he either gets traded or just sit on him. I think eventually he's going to find playing time, whether it's on the Pelicans as like a backup card or maybe a Lou Williams type coming off the bench as a sixth man, or he gets dealt for a more established player to fit in with Zion, because I think the Pelicans are going to shift towards more of a win now than a rebuild mode, trying to keep Zion happy these first couple years of him with the team before he can go to free agency. So we'll see what path they take, but just the entry point is so cheap. To me, this one's a no-brainer. You're not risking hardly anything at all by going out and picking up some Nikhil. Next, let's shift to the good old Spurs. I feel like I could have picked any one of about 6 different guys with the Spurs. They're loaded with young, fringy, trendy talent that people like and get hyped about. But I went with Keldon Johnson. And this is another one. His entry point's fairly cheap. You could see you could get his base prisms for about $10, so more expensive than Nikhil. But he played really well in the bubble games. He got a lot of big minutes and key minutes. So I think the Spurs trust him. And I could see him taking potentially more of a prominent role with that team if the Spurs decide to go more in a rebuild direction this offseason. I don't know what's going to go on with Rudy Gay yet. I don't know if they'll keep LaMarcus, DeMar DeRozan. Who knows? But you want to get in on these guys now, because if they trade one of those guys and free up playing time for Johnson, then his prices are going to go crazy. People are going to catch on to that. So you got to try to be ahead of it. And this is one where, once again, you can get his base rookies for about $10 a pop. And we come over here, we could see his PSA 10 sells for 135. And that's in the downswing of the market. So to be able to get him for $10 a piece plus $20 to grade him, you're into the card for $30. If you pop the 10, you could make almost $100 profit, minus some eBay fees and some shipping and stuff. So once again, low point of entry, $10 a pop. And then, plus your grading fees. Hell, this is another one that even if you didn't want to send it in to be graded, I think Keldon Johnson at $10 a piece for Prism rookies is a good long-term hold, or not necessarily long-term hold, but hold into next season. I don't think the way I approach this current NBA market is a long-term hold to me is like the next playoffs. So like the 2021 playoffs, the 2021 playoffs, that would be like a long-term hold for me. I don't think this current card market, you can really talk about quote unquote long-term, like 5 to 10 years, other than for a couple guys like your Lucas, your Giannis's, your LeBrons, guys like that. Most of these guys are fringy and their prices are going to peak within the first couple years that they're in the league, unless they turn into superstars. So I think in general, you're better off to sell these guys early than try to time the market and hit it perfect when they get late. Because I think for every 10 guy or every one guy that hits, 10 fail, or, they become role players or whatever, and their cards never hold a ton of value. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do I think Keldon Johnson's the next Jason Tatum? No. So if I buy now and he gets in season, starts having some pretty good games, and his prices get trendy, I'm not going to hesitate to sell. But he would be one I wouldn't mind even necessarily holding raw if you just want to get into the lower price point. But Keldon Johnson is our player from the Spurs. And then I have one last one I want to talk about. And this is from the Phoenix Suns, and it's Cameron Johnson. Cameron Johnson was considered a terrible pick on draft night. Everyone that follows the draft killed the Suns for this pick. He really didn't do much during the regular season. And then he kind of broke out during the bubble. He had really good games in their run up to trying to get into the playoffs. He had a couple duds, but in general, he played well. And I believe he's going to have an integral part on that team next season. And once again, he's going to be a young, trendy guy. And I see him getting a lot of buzz in the lead up and in the early days of the next season. So his raw prisms also super cheap and have also come down quite a bit. You go back to when they were peaked, they were almost $20 a piece. They're now down to $5 a piece. And the PSA 10 prism goes for 125, and it hit a high of 177. This raw hit a high of 20. And you can see this was a 99-cent card back in July. Um, but he spiked up because he played well, and I can see him continuing to hold on that job. I think they really like the minutes that he gave them as a weird stretch four. I know he's a point guard, I believe, in college and was drafted as a point guard in NBA 2K. That's all that matters, right? But now he's been playing the four with the Suns, and they're going to be an extremely trendy team come the lead up to next season, given the way that they exited the bubble. Cam Johnson, I mentioned De'Aaron Fox earlier. Of the young cheap guys that we've gone over so far, I am Cameron Johnson. I wouldn't say the most intrigued by him, but he's towards the top of the list. To get into his cards for $5 a piece seems like a steal. Either whether that's you're going to plan on holding them raw or sending them in to be graded. But I just think Cam Johnson for $5 is a tremendous buy and either hold or send off to get graded. He's going to get pumped to high hell come December or January or whenever the heck next season starts. So that's all I got for you guys today. We will continue this series, starting looking at teams that got eliminated from the playoffs. Probably try to get one of those out over the weekend, depending on how many players there are. Because once you start getting into the playoff teams, you get into the more stars and known guys. Not saying that these guys here aren't unknown, but so there may be less players to choose from. I may try to do all the playoff teams other than the Eastern and Western Conference Finals teams all in one video. And then we'll kind of wrap this series up with that. But if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.